Hello and welcome to this online course on true human rights. We will be looking at what a right means, where fundamental rights come from, and what they are. Later, we will be examining similarities and differences with other notions of human rights, the political embodiment of human rights, and what society would look like if true human rights prevail. My name is Robert Stephen Higgins, and I will conduct you through this explanation of rights and show you their importance. My background is mostly in engineering, where I did many completely objective analyses of engineering problems. Completely objective means to deal with the facts and governing principles without prejudice to one's preferences, religion, or philosophy. That is how I approach the question of what fundamental rights every person in the world is born with. The answer is published in my book entitled Human Rights, What Are They Really? As a complete theory of human rights. To begin, let us understand what a right is. If a person has a right, it means that he or she can do something or not do something, while other people must not interfere. It also means that other people may not do something or are required to do something for the right holder. Here is a simple example. If you own a car in a parking lot, you may go to it, open it up, get in, and drive off. Other people around may not interfere unless they have a good reason. As well, other people may not use the car, nor take any liberties at all with it. Why? Because you own it, and therefore have the sole right to control it. There are three elements in a right, therefore. 1. A right holder, or subject of the right. 2. The people addressed by the right. And 3. What those addressed are required to do or not to do. If these elements are not all present in the statement of the right, then it is difficult to understand, to implement, and to enforce. For example, the sometimes heard right to work probably has a specific meaning, but in the statement it is totally unclear as to who is addressed by the right and what their obligation is. Rights will be easier to comprehend, implement, and enforce if they are clear in regard to the three elements and incorporate any general conditions of their application, such that the right, as stated, is as absolute as can reasonably be. We can now move on to the source of rights. Invented rights can have a variety of sources, such as the legislature, which is the most common, the executive office of an organization, the elected council of a club, and so on. Rights that occur naturally are based on ownerships that occur naturally. It is these last that are the subject of this course. The first natural ownership is ownership of oneself. How does this come about? Well, we can look at the idea that all people are equal and examine what it really means. There are basic meanings and expanded meanings that will be shown later to be unsound. Let's go to the basics. A person comes into the world through the same natural process, conception and development in a womb, culminating in birth. The process is completely natural, not requiring effort by anyone, and therefore every person is on the same footing. In that sense, all people are equal, and no one can properly claim dominion over another. The clear implication is that every person has sovereignty over himself or herself. Notice that the argument applies equally to a woman as to a man. Another term for this claim is self-ownership, because every person has the sole right to control himself or herself. There are societies in the world that do not acknowledge that a woman owns herself. Do not be fooled by the semblance of normality in these cultures. For many centuries they have carried on with an artificial system that ignores the fact that both genders qualify equally as human beings. Moving on from self-ownership, we can ask who owns what oneself creates. Recognizing that anything a person creates is an operation of him or her, it follows logically that he or she owns the creation. An important caveat here is that in applying the principle, it is vital to identify exactly what was created. For example, Someone else could have provided the tools, the venue, the plan, or even the materials, but the creation would not have happened if the subject person did not willfully do something to make the creation happen. That is, the creator was the indispensable factor in the creation act. Logically, the creator is the owner of the thing created. There's no reason this does not apply to both mental creations and physical ones. The former is already recognized by most governments and is called intellectual property. You know, of course, of invention and copyright registries that protect ownership of these types of intellectual creations. Ownership of creations that are physical in character is much less universally recognized, particularly by the capitalist system that has institutionalized the payment of creative labor on a time basis. This tends to maximize profit for the capitalists, but is inconsistent with true human rights. More on that later. For clarification, when I'm talking about creations by people, then I mean anything that they do that changes the state of a thing or situation, or brings into being something that did not exist before. It may be writing a composition, carving a statue, repainting a room, replacing a flat tire, mounting the trunk lid on a car, turning a valve, or playing a musical instrument. They could be major or minor creations, but all could be classified as creations and belong to the creator. The third natural ownership is common ownership of nature's bounty. It is based on the principle that every person has an equal claim on all that nature provided. Can anyone dispute this? I don't think so. This principle implies that the land, natural waters, seashore, mountains, valuable things under the ground, and animals, when viewed as a resource, belong equally to everyone. The last item, animals when viewed as a resource, bears clarification. The natural state of animals is running free in the wild, but they can be utilized by humans as a resource, such as food, doing laborious tasks, or just pets. Because the whole community can put an equal claim on them, a person or group must obtain the concurrence of the community to keep the animals full-time, in effect owning them. The community may put conditions on this agreement. There are serious effects of the principle of common ownership of the management of land and other natural resources that will be covered in the next segment. The natural ownerships we've covered can also be called natural rights and can be summarized as follows. A person owns himself, herself, body and mind. B, a person owns what he, she creates. C, every person has an equal claim on all that nature provided, which implies common ownership thereof. D, a person or group may own animals with the concurrence of the community. These natural rights generate subsidiary rights that are more specific and therefore more enforceable. They will be discussed in the next segment.